Detroit Lions haven't won a playoff game since 1991. They'll take on a team that has won 9 straight playoff games at home dating back to 2004. The Seattle Seahawks host the Detroit Lions in this wildcard matchup in Saturday's late kickoff to start the NFC portion of the NFL playoffs. Seattle has won at least one playoff game in each postseason dating back to 2012 and has been installed as a heavy favorite to continue that streak with a win over the visiting Lions. Sharp players have already spoken on the -7 line to push it up into the -8 range. The Detroit Lions are not rolling into the postseason with any momentum. They've dropped 3 straight games, both straight up and against the spread. They've actually dropped 4 in a row against the closing number by failing to cover against Chicago in the second week of December. Detroit's regular season came to an end with a 9-7 record and 7-8 against the spread mark, and a wildcard spot instead of a division title, even though they only needed to win one of their final 3 games to do it. It's amazing how fast fortunes and narratives can change in the NFL. A lot of it has to do with Matthew Stafford's injured throwing hand. The former quarterback at University of Georgia has clearly been bothered by the apparatus holding his middle finger in place. Including the game that Stafford hurt his hand in, he's completed just 60.25% of his throws, with a 3-5 touchdown interception ratio, and has taken 10 sacks. Stafford had completed 67.2% of his throws prior to the injury, with a 21-5 touchdown interception ratio in 12 games. He was sacked 27 times. The lack of a running game has to come to the forefront with Stafford's injury. The Lions ran for 3.7 yards per carry despite a late push from Zach Zenner. Golden Tate had over 1,000 yards receiving, but Marvin Jones's production tailed off lately. Everything is going in the wrong direction for this offense, and that's a big problem. To make matters worse, the Lions' defense is looking more like an emergency room than a cohesive unit. The Lions have dealt with a lot of injuries. Asa Jackson was sporting a walking boot after the loss to Green Bay. Darius Slay has been banged up in recent weeks, and they've been hurt by the absence of DeAndre Levy, but the team persevered on the strength of the offense. With the offense falling off, though, the Lions have allowed 73 points over the last 2 games and finished the regular season with a negative point differential. The Lions allowed 5.9 yards per play during the regular season, and the league's worst completion percentage against at 72.7. It's pretty easy to see why this line is moving in the direction that it is. The Seattle Seahawks do not feel like the same team this season, as Seattle went 10-5-1 straight up with a tie against the Arizona Cardinals and finished with a spread record right around 500. Seattle dropped 4 of its last 6 against the spread and has not won consecutive games since mid-November. It seems pretty interesting that, like the Lions, Seattle had very little production in the running game. There were spots where Thomas Rawls or CJ Proces had some solid production, but the group has struggled overall. That put a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson. Wilson's 21-11 touchdown interception ratio was not as solid as Matthew Stafford's 24-10, but most of the numbers are similar across the board. Doug Baldwin is the chief weapon for the Seahawks offense with 94 catches for 1,128 yards and 7 touchdowns. But the midseason emergence of Jimmy Graham gave Seattle's offense another dimension. He caught 65 balls for 923 yards and gave Wilson another premier option that creates a lot of mismatches in the middle of the field. Tyler Lockett's gruesome leg injury gave the Seahawks a major downgrade on special teams and in terms of patch catching depth, but Jermaine Kearse and Paul Richardson can stretch defenses. Defense is the main area in which the Seahawks have a big advantage. The Seattle defense hasn't looked the same since Earl Thomas went down, but they have had a little bit of time to rally and figure things out. The Seahawks allowed just 3.4 yards per carry, which doesn't matter a ton against a team that can't run. But they know that their base defense is good enough to stop the occasional run so that the pass can be their primary focus. Seattle allowed 61.6% completion rate, which was just inside the top 10 in the NFL. Seattle held opponents to just 5 yards per play and also had 42 sacks compared to Detroit's 26. Getting behind the chains is not conducive to upsetting the Seahawks, so Matthew Stafford will have to get the ball out quickly and accurately. Saturday's NFL slate looks like it could be a little chalky. The Seahawks are certainly getting a bump in the line for the advantage of the 12th man in the postseason. The fact that Matthew Stafford has had so many problems throwing the football cannot be overlooked in this game, because the Lions just cannot run the rock. Seattle isn't as impressive as they have been in past seasons, with some offensive line issues and some aging members of the secondary, so it is a bit presumptuous to assume that they can just flip the switch. But this is a good matchup for a team needing to work out some kinks before going up against better foes next week. Our pick and prediction is for the Seattle Seahawks at -8. For our pick and prediction on this game and every other game this week, and a wealth of free stats and information, check out bangthebook.com.